Hey, what's going on, guys? We actually wanted to do something different. We've been talking about doing this for quite a few months. We missed the boat on the official suicide awareness month. But that's, kind of what we're going to go over. We've got some familiar faces, on the couch. But yeah, again, it's me, Danny.
Okay, I'm Rob.
And then-
Will. Matt.
Yeah, so you guys have seen their faces on our YouTube
Interviews.
channel before.
Our veteran spotlights.
Yeah, our spotlights, our third interview and our first official spotlight was Matt Biggs.
Right.
So check those out if you haven't. Like them, nice guys ish. But yeah, so we wanted to actually sit down and talk today, about veterans and suicide and issues we've gone through ourselves to kind of show that we're all in this together. We've been through our personal demons, and we've come out the other side kind of not unscathed, but we came out through the other side. So
And don't take this as just for veterans. I mean, if you are, if you feel like you're one of these that you can relate to us, hopefully we can give you advice in terms of what we can do to help. Because I mean, it's right now. I want to say I get the whole pandemic thing, but I think it's worse. The pandemic has made it worse, and we're getting to the point where everybody's being affected across the board, and suicide doesn't matter. Not just veterans, not just active duty, but even just everybody's being affected.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think it's great that we're going to try to address with you all.
And then going into the holiday season, typically
Oh, gosh, yeah.
suicide rates go up also.
absolutely,
So
yeah. Well,
you take all that together, it's
yeah, the winter months, I mean, a lot of it does have to do with, you don't get as much sun, and your body tends to not like that, so you get more depressed and stuff like that. A lot of colleges in
Right.
Alaska and places like that, they actually put solar lights in college dorm rooms so that way you can get some of that vitamin D,
Right.
and it actually makes you feel better,
Yeah.
so.
I think that's part of it. I agree with you. Think about the pandemic lockdown. I mean, if you notice, ever since we went the lockdown, man, it's been skyrocketing.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and I think sun's part of it. Getting out is part of it. Regardless what is going on, you can't just stay
you can
holed
always,
up in there.
Sure, you can always go to the park or take a drive by yourself or with your loved ones. You don't have
Yeah.
to stay in your house the whole time.
Oh yeah, I mean it's huge, man. I mean, I think that's the primary right now. It's really affecting people, and but you know what? I'll be honest with you. I think people are actually liking it in some ways, not in a good way,
Mhm.
because some people are actually like, people are capitalizing off it, and but then again, there's the other end of the spectrum where people, it affecting them so hard that's the reason why we're going into this dark side
Absolutely.
of things.
Yeah.
Well, I've been diagnosed with agoraphobia, so I absolutely love it. My therapist, he got to get out with ruining things.
All right, you got to tell me what that is, man.
Yeah.
So
It's many people think it's a fear of leaving your house when it's not correct. It's more correctly categorized as a fear of having a panic attack in a public place. So you stay home,
right.
because that's your safe place.
Ah,
So I like to stay home anyway. My therapist, you got to go out, push yourself. And then the pandemic hit. I'm like, see, told you.
Right.
This whole time you're telling me I need to get out. Now everybody that went out
so
sick.
it's kind of like your comfort
Good.
zone is so you're comfortable. Your house is your comfort zone. So
Right.
anytime you have to, and I think a lot of our veterans have that, dude. I hate being around anybody.
But
for the most part.
what makes it a disability is to the level, like, let's say if you're at the store and you just
it's
you get
crippling for you?
irritated. Yeah, if I'm at the store and I start to have a panic attack, I will just leave my shopping cart wherever it is and go. I won't steal anything, but and I never break the law. But I'm going straight home. I don't care if I start to feel the symptoms of the panic attack. I get home because that's where I'm safe.
Wow, that's crazy, dude.
And more specifically, like in my bedroom.
Not you personally, but I'm saying that's a crazy thing to have.
It is. It sucks. It's like being a prisoner inside your own head.
Right.
I grew up in California. I used to love to go out and people watch.
Say
at
like
the malls.
Hotel California, is that what you said?
No, I said.
Sorry, bad joke, guys.
Oh.
It's a
No,
bad
no,
joke.
but it's true. But it is. People don't get that. They see like my
Right.
disabled vet plates and they go, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with you." Well, yeah, you don't understand that when I'm here at the store and I look fine, my stomach hurts, my muscles are aching because I'm tense the whole time I'm out.
Right.
I'm nauseous. I've just been dealing with it for so long. I understand like how to have these things and still, like, I have to get food. You have to eat. That's how life works.
Right.
So I go, but I still feel these things every time I'm out. It's getting better. Mindfulness meditation really helped me when I started just learning, because with a panic attack, you start hyperventilating,
Yeah.
and then it's downhill from there. Then you think you're having a heart attack because you're hyperventilating, but your chest just hurts because you're breathing in so much or so quickly. That's initially what led me to get diagnosed. Was I kept on going to the VA, like, hey man, chest hurts, and they ran all kinds of blood work and EKGs and the stress EKG. Everything came back fine. So my doctor said, "Have you ever considered that this is a mental health issue?"
Right.
And I was kind of a relief, because
Sorry about that. I know it's not the most comfortable couch.
you could live and be crazy, but you can't live without a heart. So thanks, doc. Like, I'll take that, and let's move forward. But then really, when you have a panic attack and you're out and you go home, it reinforces the fear.
Right.
Like, I felt like this when I was there, so I go home and now I'm comfortable. I come down, everything's okay. Well, then that tells me subconsciously, well, then just don't go there. When you actually should do the exact opposite.
Right.
You need to push through that, and it eventually gets weaker and weaker. And that's what I'm working on now with my therapist, along with EDMR. Going out, pushing through that.
What's EDMR?
It's basically bilateral stimulation. So he has what's that thing that artists use? Monotone,
Oh, the mono.
and it makes that ticking noise.
Yeah, the thing that goes back and forth.
Metronome.
Metronome.
There
There
we
we
go.
go. Thank you. Metronome. So
The Navy guy got it. See, the smartest of all of us here.
Well, in the Air Force, I mean.
Which is yeah, he was security force.
I know.
So he's
I was a
like,
musician.
Oh,
right.
So you do it. It goes quicker if you want to
Pick up the tempo.
put out yeah, like basically to remove a negative memory.
Yeah.
And you go do a little slower if you want to tap in, what they call tap in, because you do left, right, and you look left and right as you're tapping bilaterally. Stimulates your brain somehow. And that's really working for me. I was surprised. I thought it was going to be BS, but I'm willing to do anything.
Right.
So let's give it a shot. But aside from medication, because you don't need that for
Yeah.
anxiety stuff. And it's actually really helped. I just had a breakthrough this past Tuesday. I won't get into, but asking me questions, and I said, "What do you mean, this is not something you want to hear from me." And he's like, "Well, I've noticed that over the past 3 or 4 sessions, you've been bringing the same stuff. You kind of danced around it, but you finally got it today. How much you tell me 3 or 4 ago, and I got it then." No, real good guy. He's also a vet at the VA out here, so I find it for myself easier to talk to somebody that is a vet. They kind of understand a little more than a civilian would, and they try, but they look at it from a civilian side, and it's kind of, well, it's because your mom didn't hug you or your dad didn't hug you. No, it's really not.
My drill instructor didn't hug me.
Right.
What?
Was the
Your
Air
drill
Force.
instructor didn't hug you?
It
No.
was the Air
Oh,
Force.
man,
so
what's
they did
going
hug
on
me.
here?
And that's why I have my issues.
My drill instructor only hugged me
If that
twice.
happened while you were
No,
boot camp, we
my-
got some issues. man.
My drill instructor did hug me.
Oh,
That's
well,
why.
that's why I would have issues then.
Yeah.
That's how we
Oh.
got Lance Corporal.
Yeah, that's how I got promoted out of boot camp.
Good boot camp.
Hey, you, don't ask, don't tell's over. So
We're past that. man.
Exactly.
There's no such thing as that anymore.
Oh, we had
Yeah, right. There's no judgment at all at this point.
absolutely.
So let me ask you a question since you started this, man. How dark was it for you? Were you ever to the point?
I was to the point that I went to my flight chief, which I think would be like a platoon leader for you guys, E7,
Yeah.
and said, "Hey man, I was never, while I was active duty, I was never suicidal, but I got to the point where I wanted to hurt other people." And I told him that. I said, "Hey, I'm having these thoughts."
I think it's called homicidal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Survival of the fittest, whatever.
it's called the Marine Corps.
So I
That's every day. You've been seeing
I-
this intent.
Yeah.
was having thoughts of setting my saw up on the hood of my pickup when I was on the flatliner, just mowing down all the maintainers.
Yeah.
Now, no, this isn't
That's
right.
good
This
to
is-
scratch the crap out of your hood, man. Especially with the M249 saw.
They had old Ford Rangers, so I don't care.
Oh, was there trucks? Okay.
Yeah,
it's all
Air Force trucks, yeah.
Oh, I thought it was your truck.
While I was on duty, so I called him over and he had me talk to the first sergeant. First sergeant brought me up here to Intermountain Mental Health Hospital.
Yeah.
They say I was there voluntarily. I just was behind locked doors for my own safety. But had me there go there for 2 weeks. I didn't think it was a great experience. And as far as therapeutic, of course, it's not fun because
didn't
you're
help you. You mean in terms of?
all I did every day was go see a colonel, a former Air Force colonel. Are you going to hurt yourself? I said, "No, Colonel, I never want to hurt myself. I want to hurt other people." "Okay, well, do you still want to do that?" "No." "Okay, see you tomorrow." That was it. No group therapy, no individual therapy,
Yeah.
no EDMR.
So no
nothing like
actual
that.
diagnosis, nothing, just kind of
No, just
okay,
kinda
well,
placated me.
he's
It
good
was
now.
Over Labor Day weekend, so they
Right.
just kind of kept me there a
Mm.
few days before, a few days after. Put me on Lexapro and Wellbutrin.
Yeah.
Took me off of them in a month. It takes 30 days to start working. Okay, whatever.
They
And,
just kind of going through the motions. Like it necessarily didn't feel like they were trying to help. It was just like
No, they
it's
100%
protocol
right.
type
Right.
thing.
And if I'd have known better, there could have been a lawsuit there, but it
I'm
wouldn't
glad
have helped
you didn't
me,
do
so-
something because that actually happened in the '90s. They actually had a Marine go and smoke his. He took his weapon from the range, went straight to his CO's office, smoked his CO, smoked the sergeant major, and he went. And it was right there at the flight line, at I believe in 33 area,
Oh.
or whatever that. The flight line 15, was it 15 down there? Because the flight line right off the main strip in terms of Pendleton.
On Pendleton, the main side, it's a 13 area.
No, not main side. The
Oh.
airstrip, the main airstrip down the.
Yeah, by where the tanks are. Where they do the tank training. When you go down the Snake Road.
Yeah, right by Margarita and all that. Yeah.
Oh,
so
by
that-
Margarita, okay.
Yeah. So down the hill there's the. So
Yeah.
So well, in the '90s that happened. Apparently I remember they locked down the whole base in the '90s, and there was a guy who was homicidal. But wow, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, well, that's one thing I knew. I shouldn't be having these thoughts. These people have done nothing to me. It would be different
Right.
if I had an issue or that slept with my wife or something.
Right.
No, I didn't know any of them dudes off duty. I just know them as maintainers.
Right.
So that's, if you start thinking like that, bring it up.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm glad you're doing better now, man. That's
Yeah.
hopefully it's not it doesn't carry over nowadays, but
Yeah,
No,
hopefully
that was
get it.
over 20 years ago. And,
Yeah.
been therapists. I most days don't want to kill anybody.
Yeah. Well, Matt hasn't really said too much, man. What do you think, Matt? Have you ever? What is your experience with either receiving end or I guess receiving end or on the opposite end of that spectrum? What have you experienced while you were in the Navy
I
or
think
now?
like a lot of other people, sometimes you get deployed, and sometimes you're either get lonely or you just find yourself in your own dark place. No matter what it is, I
Right.
think we all have that because depression is a really easy thing to come across sometimes,
Right.
whether it's yourself or your friends. And I've always thought that we don't do a good enough job in the military. I mean, we preach a lot, but when you talk about having someone sick or being there for your friend, most of the time people will outwardly say that, yeah, but a lot of times depression is really hard to find.
Right.
It's really hard to recognize and stuff. And like I said, I've been in a dark place before, but I didn't really want anyone else to know about it. You know,
Right.
so but that's the thing is I had I was in the Navy over 20 years, and only one time do I remember that somebody that was close to me that had a suicide. I'm sorry, well, twice. One was after I left the duty station, but this one was, I was an E6 at the time, and this guy was an E6, a very, very senior E6. He was going to retire within about 6 or 7 months.
Right.
So he got sent to this duty station where I was at for, I think it was barely for a year. It was just a twilight tour. So they're sending him to Washington, D.C. to this tour. And, I just remember him and I had been working. We were working on the network, the LAN server for where he worked at. We were working late on Friday night, and he was a really smart guy. I mean, he's a member of Mensa. He I don't know, what kind of plans he had in the real world, but he never was married, never had any kids. I don't know if he ever had a girlfriend in his whole life. Just that type of guy. Very, 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 I guess, somewhat
Kind of
private.
inward.
Yeah, but he was very smart. He also liked to project that to everybody too,
Right,
which was
right.
a little annoying sometimes. But so Friday we worked really late. I mean, we were there till about 20:30, and we fixed it. We got it up. We knew everyone was gonna be all happy about it. Anyway, Monday comes. He didn't come to work, and I was his leading petty officer, so I was, I went and told my chief, and I said, hey, he hasn't shown up yet. It's been, half hour. That's not like him. He said, well, we'll give it a little more time. Tried calling, no answer. well, we didn't have cell phones back then.
Smoke signals.
Not big cell phone. Yeah, we did have the big cell phones
Yeah.
or the big flip phone. Yeah. So he never answered the phone. Finally, almost lunchtime, and I was like, "Come on, chief, you gotta do something." So he grabbed another senior chief. They went to his house and they found him in his bathtub, and he had suffocated himself. That's he used a plastic bag. But I kept so immediately the first thing you do is, geez, what caused him to do that?
Right.
He never said anything. He never
Right.
outwardly told me anything, but he
Right.
was living in his own world. That was, my chief and I talked about it, and and then they also had, the chaplain came and talked to some of us, and I said, because I was probably the closest to him in the command, and I was the one who organized his memorial ceremony, met his dad, and they flew his body back home, and I always struggled with that because I was like, wow, I wish I just would have asked him more questions. Maybe if I would have been a little more, probing or helpful or something, that maybe he would still be here. But I had a suspicion. This is what the chaplain said. Well, a lot of people get to the end of active duty and they can't handle it. They can't, because back then,
Right.
how your tenure for an E6 was 20 years. You're going home whether you liked it or not.
Yeah. 26. Wow.
Yeah.
I think for
20
ours,
years.
20,
It was 20 years.
Yeah,
Sorry,
20
it was 20
okay.
years. Yeah.
I'm about to
Did I
say,
say
man, ours
26?
20 years. We're good.
Yeah.
We're done.
Edit that out.
As an E6.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was an
Not
E6
26.
at 20 years.
Yeah, you
As
ran
an
those
Yeah,
E6.
yeah. 26 years. That's it. That's a max
Yeah,
you can do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Thank
he was going home whether he liked it or not, and he said a lot of people come to that realization they can't deal with it because that's all they know now. It's been
Institutionalized
probably
for life prisoners.
over half their life
Right.
they've been in the military, and
Right.
and I can appreciate that a little bit. I mean, of course, I had family I was going home to, but you get really
Right.
entrenched in that military way of life, and now you're going to go be a civilian. You can't
Right.
handle it. So
well, that's your
maybe that was
identity.
his way.
I mean, you're absolutely right. 'Cause
Yeah.
literally, I think that I suffer from that now. Is my identity was the Marines.
Okay.
Like, you guys been in my room, you guys seen the interviews. What do I have in there? Nothing but Marine Corps member. But that's my memories right there. That's everything that I've ever done. And now I don't have that identity. The only way I have identity is as a veteran.
Yeah.
You know, they say that once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. That's sure, but you're not wearing a uniform.
Doesn't
You're not
feel like
doing.
it.
You're not
Like-
doing it anymore.
Yeah.
And then as a veteran, I mean, we celebrate balls. We do all that stuff as a Marine, but no one goes, "Hey, why don't you come to our ball?" Or even though you're a Marine. So if I'm a Marine, why am I not getting to do all the stuff they active duty guy? So I mean, I agree with you totally. Yeah, that's huge about losing your identity, and I think that's a huge step. And a life expectancy of a lot of us retired guys is pretty low. Usually, it's within like 5 years of after people retire. That, especially for like a sergeant major, like E9s, and here I am in E8, so I'm sitting there like, oh crap, let me see how long am I gonna be around for? But
Yeah, I've been gone 8 years, and I still sometimes have a hard time.
oh yeah, it sucks.
But I mean, it also goes to the greater in the civilian world too. Because of that, it changed me a little bit because now I try to be a little more sensitive to those sorts of things,
Right.
and try to pick up on it because and again, I'm not an expert, but I know most the right people to call, whether it's the VA, or the hospital and stuff like that. And we do have some great programs. We have some great veteran organizations that are there to help reach out to people. It's just recognizing it and also heading it off before
Right.
maybe it gets too late.
Well,
Because
see, I agree and disagree with that, and here's why. We get every year we do annual training, right? We get these classes, and then what do they do in these classes? They talk about all these signs and symptoms of somebody who's suicidal. And if you ever look, just like your story you just said, the guy gave no signs and symptoms. We just knew he was an introvert, right? And I'll share my story in a little bit, but about a guy that I had to do the Keiko thing. So, and that still to this day bothers me. I've had while I was in for 23, there was at least 6 people that committed suicide that I knew personally, and none of them gave signs and symptoms. I actually take that back. One did, but even though we sent the command, and the command was it was a long time ago. It was back before they were really proactive about it. But if someone, I'm good with them trying to share that and look for the signs and symptoms of someone. But I think a lot of the time, if someone puts it in their head, like if we're not being proactive enough prior to them even getting to that point, sometimes I think we're going to miss the boat on it. And that's why a lot of
For
the
sure.
guys have gotten past us, is because if they're going to really be about it, they're going to be about it.
I think particularly with military people, you'll find that it's
Absolutely.
civilians. You know, like I've had friends that have said they were going to do something like that, but they didn't. They just wanted attention.
Well, I would say
And
attention.
again,
You know what? They're
well-
asking for help, and that's awesome.
Well,
We as
no,
military
the-
don't like asking
Well, that's
for
what I'm
help.
saying. That my friends, they weren't asking for help. They just want attention. They had no. Either way, you need mental health help. Whether you're doing
Right.
it for whatever reason, you genuinely going to do it, or you just trying to do that for attention. They need to get help either way. But like you're saying, yeah, with the military, you have, especially the older veteran you are, you know how far back you were.
Right.
It's really, you didn't talk about mental health stuff.
Right.
And it's, you know,
Yeah.
the guys that are coming in now, it's getting more, and that's why this is important for me, that I share my story, not because it's fun, because it brings back those feelings, but so maybe it'll help somebody else not get to that point, and don't be too much or think I've got this.
Right.
No, man, talk to
Well, I
somebody.
mean, some people we've talked to too. This is again a military thing when you're talking to people, but I've had it where I've talked to the actual person that committed suicide, and literally you ask them, "Hey, are you gonna hurt yourself?" Oh no, and they're gonna. What are they gonna tell you? They're gonna tell you no, you know, because they're really, if they're gonna be like, again, if they're gonna want to do it, they're gonna do it.
Sure.
Now, I mean, have we tried to step in and help these guys out? You know, absolutely. I think that, you know, us, but being proactive is about what it is, and get before they get to that point, because once you get to that point, it is so hard to get them, because you're I mean, I've been in the low point, by the way, multiple times. I'll share that in a little bit, but and it's gonna be kind of hard. I get a little, but literally anybody else talking outside of, you know, of your sphere of influence, you kind of ignore it.
Sure.
You know, when you're in that such a low, you know, low point in your life. You know, because you don't want to be, like you said, you don't want to be the guy. You don't want to be like, oh, I don't want to be that guy that needs help.
Oh, yeah,
Or
after
thinks
I-
that need help, or you
After
know.
I came back to my unit, I was treated like a wet food stamp.
Oh yeah,
Like it was bad for a while.
yeah.
Well, there could be career implications.
So nobody wants to take a wet
I
food
mean,
stamp.
there's HIPAA and stuff, but you know,
Right.
word
Yeah,
the military
well,
word
they-
gets out,
they
and
know you're
then
going, yeah.
and you can you know,
Right.
it can hurt your career.
Oh, absolutely. Well, nowadays it's gotten to where yeah, I agree with you. It would, at one point, it probably would do the same thing. They take you. I could tell you about a story about that in a little bit, but you know, I think that they've gotten better about it, and yeah, they're all about helping and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, there is a percentage of people that I've talked to that we helped, but I think there's unless you're really on the ball about it, and that's kind of like your thing. You know, it's tough. It's really tough to get those guys. Especially look at us now. Now that we're in a civilian populace, and you know, we're trying to relate to these to civilians, because we definitely have a different mindset. Don't take that insultingly, but you know, we all think differently, being military people. And it's very hard for me to relate to civilians, and I think that's the reason why we started this channel, because we want to be able to relate to the civilians, but we want you to understand us too. We are definitely a different breed in terms of what we had to go through for training and stuff. So it changed our thought processes, and you know, so now we're talking about suicide. You know, it's hard. I think it's easier for me to recognize the civilian side of the house, because I've had it ingrained and beaten into me. But when it comes to our own, it's a lot harder, because now we're going to have to go back to that thought process, because we haven't changed. I mean, maybe the way I talk and the way I do things is different. But my mind thought process, I still go to places, and I don't know if you guys do this. When I go in there, I tactically go into places. I'm looking for, you know, strong points, weak points. You know, what's the best. You know, where's the high ground? I do this in every place I go.
It's
You know,
You
but
hold
if
the
I have to
war
get
room
out of
with your
there, I'm
family.
looking for E&E routes. You know, yeah. I mean, I literally do that, and it's because it's so ingrained in me as an infantryman. You know, and then but then again, you know, that's just part of the job. So I don't know. It's just one of those things, and I agree totally for the most part. I just think that it's very hard in our position to recognize that stuff. You know, I mean, it's good that we all talk, because you know, if you're comfortable with people enough, I have no problem talking to another vet, especially someone who knows what I've been through. And right here, I mean, obviously it's going to be we're a little bit demographic. You've heard my story, but I never gave the nitty gritty of my story. You know, and well, maybe I'll share one of those tonight. But I just wanted to throw that out. You know, our thought process is completely changed from when we retired, and I think that also affects some of these guys that have been out for a while. You know, like for me for retiring. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't retire. I wanted to, but because of certain
Maybe medically.
medical reasons,
Yeah.
I had to. But I mean, go back to your point about like going into a building and check in, you know, strong points and exits and weapons. And so,
Right.
my wife asked me one time, you know, she's like, when I was having dark time, she asked me about it when we went out somewhere, and I said, it's exhausting. Everywhere we go, I was like, well, I'll show you. We went out to somewhere, and I was like, I think we went out to lunch, and we sat down at a table, and I was like, how many people here do you think have weapons on?
Yeah.
Who now?
You like me then.
Now,
Absolutely.
where are the weapons around here? Where are the exit points? If something goes wrong,
It goes sideways.
where are you gonna go?
What's the ED plan?
And then we're sitting here talking for like 5 minutes, and I was like, this is what I go through every time we go to a new place,
Right.
you know, and it's
Right.
mentally exhausting.
Right. So you're like me. You assess every single. Like I
Absolutely.
assess every single person that walks into place and make sure whether they're a threat or not.
Absolutely, and it's tiring
Yeah.
thinking
It
that
does.
anybody who comes in the room, do I have to kill this person?
Right.
Potentially, like
Right.
if shit goes south, do I have to, or could I physically do it?
Right. It does. It's mentally taxing.
Absolutely, and I think that takes a lot out of anybody, regardless of
Yeah.
like if you retired, if you didn't retire, if you've ever had that training to where they teach you how to do that on a regular basis.
Oh yeah, that's all Marines because we're all basic riflemen.
It never leaves.
I
It
used-
never leaves, and it's so exhausting.
What sucks is and you're probably you know what I'm talking about on this. So I was taught combat hunter, and that's exactly what we do in
Absolutely.
combat hunter. And I used to teach combat hunter.
Yeah.
So what do I do when I get out? I do nothing but combat hunter because I'm trying to read people all the time.
Absolutely.
Like sometimes people are wondering what I'm doing. I'm actually reading that person. For anomalies, if they're telling me the truth, if they're lying to me, if they're gonna do something, how are they gonna do it?
Yeah.
It's a very mentally draining.
All
process.
the way down to are they standing aggressively?
Oh yeah.
Like
Hand
you could have
position.
absolutely, and it's exhausting, and it's one of those things that just adds to. Like, luckily at my age, I don't have any gray hair yet. I think good genes for that, but.
And he's like 80 something, so it may
Exactly,
pretty good. No,
yeah.
okay, he's younger than I am.
Yeah.
Younger than,
I signed up for the Marine Corps at Ton Tavern, so that'll tell you how old I am.
oh man, I was a recruiter, wasn't I? I'm kidding, just kidding.
Yeah.
So, oh man, that's crazy.
Chesty and I were together in boot camp, so
Yeah.
you figure it out. But it gets exhausting, and that taxed on with other mental, mental issues with being out of the military. That it's depressing.
Right.
Plus
like
all of the civilian issues, because you still have all that making the mortgage payment and stuff, with
Absolutely.
your significant other, stuff like that, and then getting out of the military, and then, like you said, watching everybody and stuff like that.
yeah.
Right.
So you still got everything that everybody else has, plus this extra, and it's
Well, that is baggage. That stuff we have is
Sure.
training. Doesn't come with training and what you've done, experience wise, doesn't go away.
No.
In fact, it's more of it's a survival instinct that we're taught all this stuff, and what it does is, we're using what we're taught, and there's nothing wrong with it. But the problem is that we're taking it into an environment where we shouldn't have to.
switching it off, right?
You can't turn on stuff like that. My PTSD is my PTSD.
Sure.
This is the worst month for me. In fact, I'm surprised I'm not more depressed than I am. Usually, I am freaking terrible because every time I fought in combat was this month right here. This is for Iraq and Afghanistan. I was in November, both times, and so every time November comes around, especially when it comes to Iraq, because I lost so many guys there that I still, as soon as this time of year comes around, dude, I get really low. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It's such a tough thing for me because, I got pictures in there. I was going through those. I was thinking about hanging them up, bringing some of them to the VFW, and where I'm working at and putting a picture up on my old platoon. And then I looked at it and I was like, dude, 3/4 of these guys are dead. And then of course that brings back a lot of memories, and it actually puts me in a bad place. So the triggering for depression. I think depression is always one thing that people get to. Your past experience and PTSD. I mean, a lot. PTSD is not just a military thing. I mean, there's women and guys have been sexually assaulted out there, and that's PTSD. Or bad accidents. I had to have some PTSD if I've been in accidents, but not anything that you've been to. But I guarantee you there's some PTSD there.
Absolutely.
That's traumatic. Something. My mother was in a car accident where it rolled. We were in Australia. I was living in Australia at the time, and it rolled probably 5 or 6 times. And then from then, I guarantee she still got some trauma from that. I mean, just like you got your trauma from your accident. I guarantee you that doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, those things are kind of like, you're always going to have that around. And it does affect you.
Absolutely, yeah. Traumatic experiences affect you regardless, like no matter your age, and different people are affected by different things.
Right.
I had PTSD before I joined the Marine Corps. Before I hit puberty, I had PTSD.
Yeah. Okay.
And it affects people differently.
Right.
It just depends on how you deal with it.
Right. Well, there's positives and negatives, and there's some positives to a PTSD, but the positives is what we were talking about. But at the same time, it still affects you to a negative when you're done.
Yeah, sure, but it doesn't always have to affect you. It will always be there. You always have that memory of whatever happened, your individual situation. You don't always have to let it affect you.
Well, see, here's the problem with PTSD. So anytime something triggers it that makes you relive the PTSD, then there's no way you cannot let that affect you.
No, but you can learn about your triggers and how to better cope with them.
Well, there's ways to cope with it, but
Right.
you can't.
That's what I'm saying.
100%.
It'll always be there, but it doesn't have to be like, because I'm sure a lot of people, when it comes to military guys having PTSD, they think, oh, they snap and start hurting people.
No. That's a misnomer. Don't get that.
Right.
I don't think that's a military thing. I think that's a man thing in general. Because even before I was in the military, I had it in my mindset. When I was a child, I was taken advantage of.
Yeah.
By someone who was supposed to be trusted.
Yeah, this is right horrible.
And I'm not going to go into too detail, but
Right.
I lived the rest of my life that I'll never, ever have anybody take advantage of me again.
Well, not only that, but that's still, regardless, relationships now and things that you have that affect you, right?
Well, and that was even before the military, I did boxing, I wrestled, I did MMA, I lived my life to the point where no one will ever, I'll never feel like a victim again. I'll never feel weak again. And that was, pre-military, so it doesn't necessarily mean it's a military thing.
Sure.
It's a cultural thing in general,
Right. Oh, actually, you're a victim, man. It's just, that sucks, and nothing you can do. And like I said, there's no trigger when that's triggered. Like for me, if I'm triggered with my stuff, my first trigger. I think you were there when I was not. When my first time when I moved here to Idaho,
Enrique?
I just got it out. No, what's that?
Enrique's.
Oh no, they freaked me out, but that did. I would see that was the manageable time. No, remember when the first we did the beer garden? So we did this beer garden for the 4th of July in CUNA days last year. You remember when they didn't tell us they were going to start the fireworks?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and I was sitting there, and it was right after we were done. Matt Thorson was there. I'm pretty sure you were there too. We were all sitting there, and I took cover. And I was gone for a couple minutes, and people were like looking at me like I was taking cover behind a trash can from what I recall or whatever. I didn't know. I went into my place, and it's the second time in my life that's happened. There's nothing I can do about it. I automatically go back to now. What's worse than that? But sounds is one thing. If I smell anything that smells like Iraq, don't even bother trying to talk to me. I will go to that place. Because there's nothing I can do about it. But thank God I'm not in Iraq or someone who smells like that from Iraq. So
what I'm saying is you can control it so that your automatic response isn't to hide it. It takes a lot of work.
It's not hiding. I take cover because that's a mortar. That sounds just like a mortar when it's actually that close.
Right, but I'm saying is so instead of
when you feel it in your body, and you're trained to, that's your first initial response. Like
Yeah,
that's your body just
Yeah.
it's muscle memory, and
of course.
and,
And
try
that may
to
have kept you alive at one point in your life. I understand that.
absolutely yeah.
100%. But what I'm saying is now it takes work, but you can make it to where that's no longer your automatic response. And that may have to do, like, maybe look into the EMDR like I'm doing. Super simple, just deep breathing.
I have to
If you want to, so I'm just saying.
There's no, I don't know if
something-
I can ever get them. You know, there's some things that are so traumatic. I don't think that you can fix
absolutely
everything.
yeah.
That-
I mean, but the thing is, it's not a violent response I have.
Well, sure,
it's
right.
just
You're not-
what
you-
my survival
Of course.
overtakes what happens to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously we're way off topic in the suicide thing, but the thing is this does relate to it because this affects your psyche. You know, am I normal now? Every time I have this kind of response to things, and you know, I don't feel like I'm normal when I do it. Just like you're saying, you know, if I can fix it, I will try to fix it. My thing is like, and we'll get back on topic. Is yeah, I think there's some things you can mitigate to a certain extent, but I don't think you can 100% fix some of the things that done. That's like trying to change my whole mind process or thought process from my training, and there's no way to do it.
Yeah.
You know, because even no matter how much I want to, it's ingrained.
I mean,
your
some of the stuff I did.
but it wasn't always there. So it can be. It takes time. Like it wasn't like the first day you were a Marine. It wasn't just there.
But
And, you know, it took time to
okay,
get
so
put
here's,
in there.
here's an
right?
example
So-
of this. So I still, to this day, let me use an example to help you, kind of give you a picture. I remember, and this still messes me up to the thing. So the day before we conducted the Battle of Fallujah, I got moved, and this is where survivor guilt comes in. This is me. I'm giving you this raw, guys. All right. So I'd been pulled out. The Battle of Fallujah, I was a javelin gunner, but I was also with the Cat Platoon, which is the anti-armor team. All right. I got pulled out of that and put into a company. I was in Alpha Company 130 for 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines. So what ended up happening was, I went from weapons to that. The day before that, and I was the navigator. So I was a staff sergeant. I navigated the platoon. They constantly used me for stuff. In fact, I navigated all the way from, because I was so good at land nav and stuff, and I could sit and I had like this. If you ever looked at maps in Iraq, there was a book, and the maps were huge, and you had to sit there, and I'm sitting there like going through like flipping through trying to get there and I'll constantly keep track of where we were at. So what ended up happening though is because of me getting moved, I was kind of hanging out. Well, they went out on patrol without me, and they went into an area north of Fallujah, and it's called Cloverleaf. It's just basically, you know, the exits that you do on freeways. Well, the Army had put up barricades underneath this, and they were driving blackout, which is, if you don't know what blackout is, you're driving night vision goggles, which give you zero depth perception, and nor can you see out. You only see out a certain distance, especially, and they have these little tiny lights that are on there that don't show up, so you're kind of not being shown to the enemy, right? So they work with your night vision goggles. Well, they were cruising through this area, and they blasted through there, and they made a serpentine, which means, you know, it's kind of an S shape where these barricades were at. They didn't know they were there. Well, they plowed into those at 50 miles an hour, killed the gunner that in the vehicle that I was in. All right, and the next day, not the next day, that night, I was woken up by my first sergeant. Said, "Hey, you need to inventory this guy's gear. He's dead." And I literally, they gave me all of his gear, all bloodied and everything, because the vehicle rolled over onto him and killed him. His name was Richard Slocum. Never forget, the kid was badass. All right, the first day we entered Fallujah, we were actually driving by Abu Ghraib. We got ambushed. L-shaped ambush, classic. These guys did it. It looked like Star Wars. I'm not going to lie. This is the craziest thing I ever walked into. Bullets were actually going ricocheting off my hood. That's how crazy it was. It was right below, and they attacked us like right before dawn. So the sun was getting. So we see green tracers coming. There's ours going back out, and it's just. And while we're driving, and this is the whole battalion in a movement, right? So Slocum, this is that. What they try to do is they try to pull a trash truck in and split us. So they split and I was with the front of the element, because I was, you know, the navigator, and we had 2 guide vehicles in front of us from 5th Marines that were actually guiding us in. Well, Slocum gets up on the gun. These Suburbans were cutting us off. Trash trucks coming in, and he starts lighting them up. Man, it was like a movie. And he ended up like taking out 3 or 4 of these Suburbans with a 50 caliber, just going to town, right? So that was the day before he died. So imagine, so for me, I don't know, to this day I'm still scarred because I mean, if I put myself in that probably would not have happened if I was there, if I was navigating this, if I was making sure, I'd slowing them down, not going so fast, right? So and that's just one thing, and then of course, there's many other things. I'm just using that. That's a minor one. That one doesn't affect me as much as we called our platoon up after we lost 17 people. We did a feint before the Battle of Fallujah, and we lost a 7-ton full of people. Now, here's the part where that I feel survivor guilt. So in that, the platoon sergeant, before he went on this deployment, he was a brand new staff sergeant. He's just coming off the drill field, or he's coming off one of his with a special bill assignment. Well, and I'll call it staff sergeant. I think we'll talk about this in my thing. But let me give you more nitty gritty to this one. So I feel survival guilt still to this day because what happened was, as I was the platoon sergeant, and I had already done a year and a half before this deployment with my platoon, right? And so that picture of all these guys and stuff like that I'm talking about. So what ended up happening for me is these guys, they needed someone to go into a lower billet. It's still a staff sergeant billet, but it's considered less because you're going from platoon to a section. So I'm going from 30 people to 15 people. So, and, I had the option. I could pick whichever I wanted because I was already the platoon sergeant. But this guy was coming in, and, I felt I was boys with this guy. I was like, all right, this is my boy. I don't want to screw his career over. So I was asked to step down into the lower position. Now, where do I feel horrible about this, or do I feel guilt to it? Yes, and the reason why is that was the vehicle. So that vehicle that got hit with all those were all my old platoon, and the staff sergeant was in that vehicle. He was the only one who survived, as well as one of the lance corporals. Everybody else in those vehicles were killed. So to this day, how it would have been different if I was in charge of that platoon, or if I was indifferent in the vehicle. Well, he did things differently than I did. But the thing is like, we'll never know to this point because but I had to deal with that all the time. And then after that, what made it even worse is I had to go pick up the bodies up off the ground of people I knew. Right. Lance corporals there. I recognized tattoos, and I knew the family members of every single one of those guys because we used to have barbecues together. So I knew their wives, their kids, which a lot of them had babies when we left for this thing. So here I am, having to put myself like, oh my, is it my fault? Your dad's dead.
Yeah.
And you put me in some low places, man. Yeah, I can deal with some horrible that, but that's the kind of things I can't fix. I can't fix that. There's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah.
And it does. It makes you depressed and
absolutely.
Especially this time of year. Every year, that's what I think about. I think about all these guys that I'll never, is it my fault that these guys will never be back again?
Yeah, it's a hard thing to deal with.
It's not your fault though.
Yeah,
it's not.
It's the enemy
not.
that did that, or it's circumstantial. Like,
right.
If there was something that was going to come, it was going to come. I understand why you feel like that. I just want you to. It's not.
Yeah.
No, and I know it's not my fault. The problem that you put yourself in is would have been different in both those situations if I would have been there. And we don't know. But the thing is and that's the thing is that you've got to live with is the fact that those guys will never. Now, do I honor these guys? And yeah, I have nothing but respect for every single one of the guys. I love the lance corporals that I worked with. Man, they were good. They were good. These guys were good Marines, and it sucks. Sucks losing anybody because that to this day just tears my heart out, man.
Yeah,
So this is just examples. I just worse than that, but I don't want to steal everything, but
yeah. Well, after deployments in Iraq, it's and living through shit just as similar as that. Like the way I deal with it is same thing, survivor's guilt, but is I try to live my life the best I can
Right.
for them. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
so when I get super depressed, it's like, well, fucking, what would, you know,
Yeah.
what would we be sitting here talking about? What would they say?
Yeah.
You know.
Well,
just
I'm
to-
kind of glad we have this. So if you're watching this,
Yeah.
hey, let's understand. You know, this is. I have issues, but at the same time, it's exactly what he's saying. You know, no one wouldn't even know who these people are
Absolutely.
unless you're reading a news article or something. So I'm alive to share. You know, Slocum, for example, Richard Slocum. His dad may see this, so
Yeah.
you know, good kid, and it sucks, and you know, things could have been different, but at the same time, you know, I get it. There's nothing I could have done. Things happened the way they happened because of decisions, and like I said, it's not. I know I know I couldn't have done anything about it, but at the same time, you know, it's always going to be there in the back of your head.
Sure, I'll never forget that.
The only difference would be this conversation would be going on without you here, and it might not even be going on because when I
Right.
initially had this idea and I came to you with it, and
Right,
then
right.
and then with you,
We all had the same idea. We all wanted to do this,
absolutely.
which was
Yeah.
pretty funny. But
and the reason when I approached you guys with this idea initially was because of somebody like that. I lost somebody who we never got to sit around and tell our stories.
right,
And that's why it came along. So I mean, the only difference would be is if you were there, you know, like you wouldn't be here.
Right.
We'd be doing it somewhere else.
right,
Maybe it's different people, and it just wouldn't be that. It's always, you know, shoulda, woulda, coulda. I had the same things. I did pit teams and mid teams when I was
Oh, yeah.
in Iraq,
yep,
and one of the stories, you know, like that gets me all the time is I worked at a Class 1 lot as well, which is receiving and shipping gear.
yeah. I'd want to kill myself if I had to work in a
Yeah,
class 1 lot, too.
they
Just kidding.
I also did work with the pit teams, and so we had trucks that came in late, and so I was up till like 3:30, 4 in the morning. But yet I had to go out the next day
Right.
and go out with the mid team. But I basically nagged my buddy so much because he got more sleep than I did.
Right.
He took my spot, and then they all died. You know, like
Yeah.
it's one of those things. Like, if I would have been there, could I change it? Absolutely not.
Right.
Because it's not an action movie.
Oh yeah.
I'm not
Absolutely.
Rambo. I'm not going to change the outcome of
Right.
insurgents wanting to, you know,
Become
go to heaven to get their virgins. But it's one of those things like, somebody else could have been out of there. You
Right.
know, like maybe it wouldn't have been everybody.
Right.
But it's you live your life to where you want to make them proud. You know, you want to live your life to the fullest, so that way they never got to live theirs. So that way
Right.
you kind of like you do extra to make up for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Well, you guys share made me want to share something else, something really traumatic that happened while I was in. Now you know, Air Force, and then I went Army Guard.
Hmm.
And Air Force,
We don't hold it
chow hall
against
was
you.
great.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't.
ugh.
One time I had to eat at Army Chow Hall. I will never ever.
Why you gotta bring up
I know,
chow halls?
right?
Like,
Right. If you tell
It
you
was
did an Air
bad.
Force one,
oh, I went from eating steak and lobster to I had to have a
this guy used to
hamburger.
cook the stuff, so
I had to have a hamburger.
Right.
Man,
Oh man. And Chiefs
I
mess.
had to
That's
pick
all
my
I'm gonna
own
say.
tray up.
Absolutely.
If I
It
get on
was
Chiefs
horrible.
mess,
I had to bust my own tray.
This is
Oh.
killing me, man.
Yeah.
Killing me small.
I mean, that would make me
Sorry, I
depressed
deal
too.
with
you know?
awkward situations.
So what was
I- yeah.
I mean, have you ever? How low have you ever been, man?
I'm sorry.
How low have you ever been?
I don't think I ever really thought about killing myself so much as
Have you seen
I did
cops
have
maybe?
the ideas crossing your mind of I
Right.
wonder if this place would be better if I wasn't here,
Right.
Yeah.
or if people would be better off if I was gone.
Yeah.
Those yeah, I think that's just part of being human. That's crossed my mind before. It's probably crossed all of our minds.
Yeah.
But I'm lucky to be in a place where I can always take a step back. You know, I'm pretty laid back, pretty calm about
That's good.
that
man.
sort of thing. I always just
Glad
try
to
to
hear
think
that.
about, you know, someone's gonna miss you. You know,
Right.
Absolutely.
and sometimes you feel like nobody's gonna miss you, but somebody's always gonna miss you.
Right.
Absolutely.
And then one of the things is like that you think of seriously is if I do something to myself, who's gonna be the person who's gonna find me? you know.
Right.
And that's always kind
Yeah.
of been a sobering thought, you know.
Right.
So, you know,
Yeah, my friend found her cousin hanging
Yeah.
in a closet. She was 15 at the time.
yeah,
Right.
I know of
I had a
somebody.
Marine do that too. Kill himself in the closet
Yeah,
on
friend-
base housing on Pendleton.
A friend of mine was
So
he
crazy.
was a chief. He got commissioned. We both got commissioned, and I found out. I got a phone call a couple years later. He was an 02, maybe an 03, and he went off in the woods and shot himself.
Mm.
And I just can't even imagine. What was so bad for him, because he was probably. I thought he was probably stronger mentally than me, you know. And
Right.
I don't even really consider myself that strong mentally, but I think I have a pretty decent head on my shoulders,
Right.
as big as it is. But you know, this guy, I thought was kind of the epitome of of that.
Yeah.
And then he you know, blew his head off basically. And I can't even imagine his wife and his young kid, you know,
Right.
little boy.
Right.
You know, there was another one killed himself on the bridge of the ship. He was on watch. He was on watch. It was a late.
Watch officer? Or you talking about?
No, it's just he was just a role. You know, I think he was
Okay.
petty officer of the watch or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like that. He was an instructor. This guy was all the crap rolls off of me. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
that kind of guy. You know, a duck or whatever. This guy was that. You know, the little things I worry about. He's one of those types.
Right.
He got married. This is again after he left. This is a couple years later, and then I just read about it in the news.
Right.
He was potentially lucky, but he ended up going up with his sidearms 9mm, went up to the bridge and shot
Wow,
himself.
that's crazy.
Yeah, and it just makes you. It just reinforces that thought of, geez, what else could I maybe have done to help him with that? And a lot of times there isn't anything that you or I can do really.
Yeah.
We can be the starting point, I think, but we're not the finishing point. I mean,
Right,
really,
right.
the finishing point is
Well, I
that
think it's
person.
a proactive. I mean, if you don't
But-
catch them before that,
Yeah,
to that
but-
bottom rung of that ladder, you're probably not going to be able which sucks. I mean, and of course we just had this, the what if. But I think a lot of the times we don't really think about it. But a lot of these guys, once they hit that bottom rung, man, it's really hard to bring somebody back to that point.
Sure.
And
Well, we also,
It's tough.
being in the military, for so long and stuff, that toughness thing about how we
Oh, yeah.
aren't going to tell anybody anything.
Stigma.
But we also have to be, we also have to make sure that we're not enablers. In other words, if I think
Right.
Rob's having a bad time right now and it's
Right.
November, I don't know that, but I know he's in a dark place.
Right.
I'm not going to be his boy and just think maybe, oh, he's going to be just fine. Because sometimes they might not be. You really need to take him off to the side and say, man, are you okay?
Right.
And if you really do get those, get those bad feelings, maybe that is time for you to talk to somebody else
Right.
That's
and say, talk to a chaplain, talk to, somebody.
Right. Now with PTSD, you get highs and lows. Now here's a good example of this. These guys I've been on my low this month, so it's pretty crazy because it's actually getting a little better now because I used to be just high and low all the time, like a bipolar person, because you just never know which where I'm going to be at. But the crazy part was, and it's like I've had people already ask me like, hey, you all right? You all right? You doing okay? And it's hard to explain to him. That no, I'm not to the point. I'm not anywhere near of wanting to hurt myself, but the PTSD does affect me in terms of my highs and lows. And when I'm on my low, it's nothing I can really do about it. It's an emotional response that I get that's just automatic, and I can't do anything about it. This time of year does this to me all the time. Like I just come off as a jerk to everybody, but I'm just trying. I just basically go eternal. One story, if you don't mind me sharing it, and I think this is very relevant. I'm gonna try not to. Let's see if I can do this and go make it through this. Okay, I have been suicidal. There's been 2 or 3 points where I was at that bottom rung. Not quite hanging on to that bottom rung, but it was like every day was being at the bottom of the pool looking up, and whether I'm going to get that next breath or not. It was that low. I think the only thing that has helped me was because of another Marine that did kill himself. And when I was in an advisor training group, and if you want to look this up, you can look it up. I'm sure that if you Google this, you'll find it in there. There was a Marine from Florida. His name was Kyle Washington, and he was one of my sergeants. Was in a relationship with a girl, and he was. I mean, this guy was happy-go-lucky, as far as I knew. Good Marine overall, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we watched him tank. So what happened was his relationship went south with this girl. We all talked to him, and we were all trying to help this guy. Right? We recognize it. It's one of those, you recognize the signs and symptoms. Can we help him? So everybody in the command did everything we could. Like, hey man, you okay? Do you need anything? Talk to us. I was a gunny at the time. We had 2 gunnies. I was working with, and he might see this video. We'll see if I tag him in it. But we were doing everything we can to try to help this guy, man. And so one day he just disappears. So he goes straight UA, right? And then I want to say it was probably about 2-3 weeks later, he was picked up. So I was in 29 Palms, which is middle of the desert, right? Well, what ended up happening is he picked up by local authorities. So the cops picked him up, found him. If you know about 29 Palms, there's all these houses out there that are just abandoned. There's no one living in them. They've been there for years, right? So what he had done is, but when you go UA, they stop you getting paid, right? So what he did before they stopped him getting paid was he bought like everything he had, right? He was so depressed that he bought out his whole paycheck's full of alcohol, and he went into one of those old abandoned buildings and he just drank himself for 2 weeks. That's all he did. This girl really wrecked him. So they finally got. So he got picked up and we brought him in and we put him in the same thing. We put him in they took him down to Balboa for treatment.
Ooh. Sorry.
Well, I mean, that's where they're going to put people, because, I mean, that's the,
I spent 6 months in Balboa.
Well, the psych ward part of it. So, they sent him in the suicide ward.
Balboa hurts my heart.
Well, I got my, they finally diagnosed my shoulder, so I can't say anything all bad about Balboa. They actually have decent surgeons, but I think I had it done, they did my referral, and then I had my surgery by one of the best Navy doctors on Pendleton. But, anyway. So they found him and they brought him back, and we sent him to Balboa to the suicide ward, and he was there, and he spent 2 weeks there, and the day of his release, I was told about it, so I was getting ready to get the van ready to go pick him up, drive all the way from 29 Palms to Balboa and bring him back, right? Because he was being released, and I was like, cool, man, I'm glad. So we were all looking forward to seeing this guy. So he went in for a shower, and he went and took a shower, and the corpsman left and let him get dressed because he'd done his treatment, and he was coming back. Well, so what he did was the same thing that that gentleman did in your story, which is he took, I don't know where he got it. Well, I know where he got it from. So the trash can liners and the trash cans. So he took the trash can, the small trash can, right as he walked in. Right after he got done taking a shower, and I don't know where he got it, but there's like elastic cord or something he found in there.
Probably out of his underwear.
Huh? I don't know. I don't know what it was. I couldn't tell you what he did, but he made it to where once he put that bag on over his head and locked it down, it wasn't coming off.
Yeah.
And then what ended up happening is he passed out. So if he's standing up, he passed out straight, standing up, and the corpsman came in on him, found him in there with the I said, of course, they try to, at that point, they had him on ventilators and everything else, but he was gone. That's how quick it was. And that's why I kind of make the comment earlier that, once someone gets to that bottom point, that bottom rung, even if you give them the help, unless they want the help, there's nothing we can do except, talk to them and try to do what we can to try to get them. But some of these guys you just can't do anything about. And which is kind of sad for this, especially this guy, because I was hoping again, guilt, man. I have to deal with this. Well, here's where it changed my life, and I guess I can honestly say that if this guy did any good, this guy helped me out. I was the KCO. I was the only KCO advisor training group, and they were like, "Hey, Washington's dead, dude." And he went from sergeant being busted down, of course, all the way down to PFC, all that kind of stuff. Thought he was doing better, sent him out, all this stuff happened, and he killed himself.
Oh,
So
for those people who Keiko is,
Keiko's a casualty assistance call officer.
yeah, we've said it a few times, but
The movie where Kevin Bacon is escorting the the people that have died in combat and stuff like that.
yeah,
Was it Chasing Chance?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's a Keiko. So because Kyle Washington was dead, someone had to call the family. Someone had to notify, do all the funeral arrangements. I was called for that because I was the only trained Keiko in the unit.
yeah.
Guess volunteering for everything's not great, but especially not at this point because I knew this kid and he was one of mine and it broke my heart, man. This is so I went and drove to Balboa even after we find out because I'm getting ready to go pick this guy up and then now I'm switching from picking this guy up to him. Hopefully he's going to recover, and of course having to call family. And the Marine Corps flew them out to to be their son, and of course he's on ventilators and he's pretty much brain dead. So we went through the whole process, and I had to sit there, contact, start doing all the paperwork in the event, and eventually was there and watched them take him off the ventilator. So with the family, and then having to watch that. Then after that, they took his remains and I guess he wanted to be, put in an urn. So the family went back to Florida after this, and I had to go throw my Alphas on, which is the green uniform. You guys see all that, kind of thing. Got on a plane with his remains and flew them to Florida, and then of course went to the funeral. Did you do everything as a Keiko, and it is hard, man. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I had to look this family in the eye, and of course I had to do an investigation and stuff. And does alcohol contribute? Well, I think alcohol does contribute to a lot of suicides because that is definitely not. If you even think about depression and everything else, and you're going to alcohol straight, get blasted just to try to forget all your stuff, it's probably one of the leading causes of getting to that point.
So I think the moral of most of the stories is, first off, don't be too macho to ask for help. If you feel like you're thinking a certain way, or you're having thoughts, or you just need somebody to talk to, there's always somebody that will talk to you.
Absolutely.
The VA has a crisis line, which the link will be in the description.
Yeah.
You can comment on the video below. One of us will get back to you. 100%. Something that helped me, that we mentioned a little bit, is joining a VSO, a Veteran Service Organization. I'm not going to plug anyone specifically, but that'll give you a little bit of that camaraderie back. When prior to joining the American Legion, when I lived in Montana, I'd sit in my house 2 weeks at a time and not talk to anyone.
Yeah.
And that obviously doesn't help your mental health state when you're just sitting there by yourself.
Right.
And one of my mental health counselors encouraged me to do that, and I did, and I'm glad. It's really helped me out personally. But
Right.
And from the other side of it, if somebody comes to you saying they want to talk, they have issues, don't tell them to suck it up, because you don't know. They may just be wanting attention, or it may be serious, and you don't know unless you're certified. You're a doctor, psychologist, or something like that. Get them help and let the professionals decide.
Right. Well, let me finish this up because this is the last part of it.
Sorry.
Oh no, you're good, man. But what I want to throw out there is, I was getting to that point where you're talking about right now, because what made me realize and get to the point where I haven't been to the point where I was at that bottom rung is because of this case, and because I actually was on the other side. Watching the family go in there,
Right.
and if you're watching this, look, if you're on the other side of this before you get to this point. It's just like Matt was saying, when you got to see the kids come out, the families come out, mom and dad, and and they've got to deal with this. It is a completely different experience than what you picture mentally. And if it wasn't for that, I probably would be. But I can't recommend you all becoming Keikos because it's not a realistic thing. But if you can learn from my experience, like he's saying. If you haven't hit that, yes, absolutely contact us, because if it wasn't for me seeing this stuff, I probably would be in that boat. And I can't, there's no way for me to show you that in a retrospect. But hopefully, if you hear what I'm trying to tell you, it'll help you get to a point where you just get help. I mean, there's nothing wrong with asking for help. And I'll tell you this. Let's go into this because I mean we might as well. So, and some of the things that have helped me out is one, alcohol. I try to avoid alcohol anytime I can try to do it. Now, if I do drink, for the majority of the time, I try to keep it to where I'm not getting blitzed. Or if I'm feeling depressed, I don't touch alcohol. If I'm feeling good, I'm having a good day, and I'm socially drinking, that's one thing. But if you're feeling like you're depressed, don't go to alcohol because the alcohol just makes it worse. And that's one experience I've learned. If you ever look at any case of suicide, they all go to alcohol. It's just it's a vice that we've learned. I think Hollywood has put that in our heads. That if you feel depressed, go drink some alcohol, and drown your stuff away because it'll help you out. Yeah. And I think it's that's one of the leading causes of what causes people to eventually fall off.
Your inhibition, So
oh, absolutely. Yeah. And, well, there's that. The thought process is you get even more depressed, and then
that's
the thought
one of the
process
reasons
gets even
I
worse.
stopped drinking. I haven't drank in 10 years for that reason. I never was an alcoholic. I just noticed it getting to a dark place in that, and I don't need this. So
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think some of the other things too is one, support structure. You got to have a good support structure. If you got good friends, like I got these guys are good friends.
Wait, we're friends?
What do you want me? What do you want to be? What do you want to be?
I thought we were like kind of like cool acquaintances.
Okay, but we can be cool acquaintances. So, I mean, just having a connection to, people. If you're a veteran, I only relate to veterans. It's tough for me. Like I can't even talk to my wife and kids about this kind of stuff, man, because that's not my comfort zone. So find a connection to people that can relate to you.
Sorry for when you guys watch this.
What's that?
Your wife and kids.
Well, no, because I know it sounds.
Yeah. No,
I'm pretty sure you're probably the same boat.
Yeah,
I understand, but from a
Yeah,
civilian
you really
side,
can't. You can't really.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You just don't know. That'd be like.
How many people have actually gone to their wife and kids if they're
well, that'd be like us trying to understand childbirth. You can't have a child,
Absolutely.
so you
No,
wouldn't, but other women could understand it. So
there's
it's
a
kinda the same
lot of
thing.
things you can't relate.
Like, it's not knocking
my
them at
wife
all.
can't relate to my military service.
Yeah.
Right.
Matt can, Will can, and you can because you guys. And when I tell them this stuff about picking body parts up off there, you're like, yeah, I can see that happening because you guys can relate to that. It may not be to that extent.
Yeah.
No,
But you understand it. But I tell my wife just looks at me like I'm a psycho. But anyway.
But if I sense something wrong with you,
Yeah.
I'm not going to go tell the police or the doctors or something like that.
Right.
I'm going to walk to your wife.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully she can.
Yeah, absolutely.
She can get you to those places because
there should be a. Yeah, I mean, I may be able to relate my information to you, and you can be like, hey, he might be able to say, hey, your husband's in a dark place right now. You may want to tell him to call the. And if it's to the point where I'm super bad, I'll just tell you, hey, man, maybe I need to call that crisis line, that the VA has or something, but or something or.
And something else I want to make very clear to everyone watching that if you think nobody cares about you, nobody will be affected by you passing. I know for me personally, anytime I see that a veteran has killed himself, it affects me a little bit because we are brothers and sisters, and I hate that, especially the closer it is to where we live. I think, man, I wish if I, could I have reached out to them, did I come across them? It does bother me though. It sucks because
right, and on top of that, if it's someone it's that's you might as well.
Oh, it's way worse. But I'm saying even if you've never met me, and I hear that you've passed and you were a veteran,
right?
You took your own life. That bothers me,
right?
And it angers me that I feel, and Danny and I have talked about this a little bit, that the military doesn't do enough on their side to help the mental health stuff. They're getting better step by step, and it's just too slow.
Yeah.
My problem is again relatable stuff because when I was at my low and I actually sought counseling for me, and I went to 2 counselors, and neither of them could do anything for me because it sucked. Because when I told them the story, like the stuff I'm telling you, like when I had to go pick up, help pick up the body parts of my former platoon, they're like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Because the guy cannot relate to me at all. They're like, oh my god, that sucks. I don't even know what to tell you. Well, thanks, dude. I appreciate all your freaking assistance there. It was such a horrible. I had such a horrible experience of that it was zero help. And like again, if it wasn't someone, if it was maybe a veteran that could understand, what I went through. I mean, like I said, I went to 2 counselors, and they were both. This is while I was on active duty too, of all things. So, you know, the support structure has to be something that you trust, man.
Absolutely.
You know, I can't just talk to any doctor out there.
Well, I know for the Boise VA specifically, if you are not matching up with your counselor, this is what my counselor said. They work in teams, so they could refer you to somebody else that you made better.
Right.
So anybody that's wondering, if
Just
you
click
go,
with.
right, if you go, like I said, the dude I see is great. I've had a bunch of counselors. The 10 years I've been dealing with this,
Right.
and so one of them actually told me that nobody loves you and you're a horrible person. Well, thanks. That's going to cheer me up.
Yeah, right?
So,
Yeah, no.
you know, be assertive. You want to get better. You've got to sometimes, especially dealing with the VA, maybe switch around. But talk to them, like I said.
Yeah.
Hey, this isn't working out. Don't be a jerk about it.
Right.
You know, is there somebody else? Can,
Well, mine wasn't the VA. Mine was actually on active duty.
sure.
So I was
they were
actually
horrible.
on-
I was
you
where I
know,
was at when I
that's-
started
that's what
doing my
they do.
stuff. The active duty was horrible.
Yeah, like I've got Idaho Veterans Network reaching out. I think that's kind of cool. So if there's a veteran network and you're a veteran, try to check these people out. They do have training that does help with these kinds of things. So the VA is huge. I mean, if you are coming off of active duty at some point, they got so many programs out there that will help you, and they work. But we have to shed that the whole thing
That
we're talking
stigma.
about, the stigma of us being too tough to actually get the help. So
Yep.
thankfully for me, I had to coming of God moment, that having to deal with Kyle and everything, and that was what brought me. I mean, I know everybody's different, but hopefully that will help. The other thing that helps me too is two things, and that's a sense of purpose in life, man. If you don't feel like if you don't have a sense of purpose, like for me, it came to this because I lost all my other coping skills. All right, so my coping skills is the other thing I was getting ready to go into. But if you don't have for me, it's a sense of purpose. I'm enjoying interacting with other veterans, and that's for me a sense of purpose in my life. If you don't have that, you got to find something. Whether you volunteer,
Stay busy.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
what makes you feel important? What makes you feel good? If you're a vet, I mean, you may not think it, but all those. The VFW is a great organization to be a part of. The American Legion, any veterans organization that you can get into to give you a sense of purpose, do it.
Absolutely.
I don't know what you guys. If you're just a civilian watching this, I don't know what you guys have, but there's
there's stuff
volunteer
they
at the
got, like-
American Red Cross. I mean,
They got the Lions
that makes you
Club.
feel good. Well, I mean, like the American Red Cross is, if you want to help with that, become someone who.
Well, you can help it. I mean, there's got to be like homeless shelters.
Homeless
food
shelters.
banks.
I mean, there's so many
In your
different coping
community somewhere.
mechanisms.
Yeah.
I mean, just to give you a sense of purpose in life, and then of course, I think that you have to have other things too. Like, dude, if you see my hobbies are my coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
This is a hobby. All right, I don't do this for money. I don't do it for anything else. I just do it because it gives me that, it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
But it is a coping mechanism because I'm talking out
Yeah.
everything that I feel, and I'm hoping it reaches out to you. But like for me, let me go through a list here. I used to teach Marines and sailors how to sail. Right, that was one of my coping mechanisms. I love sailing, by the way. If you haven't figured that out. Scuba diving, I did that. That was a huge coping mechanism. After I talked to that counselor, I actually went and got scuba certified. And I'm going to tell you, that's probably one of the best things for PTSD ever. Sucks when I can't do it because now that coping mechanism is done. But it's a coping mechanism one way or the other. For helps depression, helps with PTSD, helps with. So those two examples. Now I Jeep, so I go off roading, when I can. So these are all things. And I'm hoping to start streaming soon. So, as well as keep doing these videos and stuff. These are all coping mechanisms. These are the things I keep busy every single day. And I don't know if you guys had that too, but it helps me.
A question: when you say Jeep, do you mean go get stuck somewhere and get pulled out by a real vehicle?
Absolutely. If I get stuck, it just makes it that much more fun. Hopefully, I have a signal on my phone to call to get someone to pull me out. But you know what? At least I was having fun prior to getting stuck, right? So the whole point is that we get out. I don't know what you guys have for coping mechanisms, but it's huge.
Yeah.
It's the only reason why I have not ended up back in my dark place again. And even when I do, I just find a coping mechanism. Teaching kids how to shoot,
Yeah.
shooting, that's another thing I do. So, I mean, there's so many coping mechanisms that I have that I pull from. I don't recommend having just one.
Sure.
Yeah.
And obviously that they be
variety.
I have a bunch of stuff you like. If you like the game, dude, game.
that they be positive, not like, hey, shoot heroin, that's my covenant. No.
Right, but I don't
Not what
recommend.
he's saying.
Right.
Positive
But the
stuff.
problem with, and here's the thing, I love the game, but I don't make that my primary coping mechanism because when you get holed up, we just talked about being held up earlier and not be able to get out and stuff. So I shouldn't be just gaming as a coping mechanism. You have to do things that are getting out, giving you a sense of purpose. You know.
Yeah. So myself, I've actually attempted suicide a few times in my life.
Yeah.
When I was 10, I tried to slit my wrists. I have scars on my wrists from being a child, from
All right. So
just
we-
a very bad
well,
situation.
we've both been there then.
Yeah, I figure,
I didn't want to get too detailed without.
absolutely. But and then when I was in active duty, my second tour in Iraq, very suicidal. After losing people, after
That hit you
people
hard,
taking
man.
absolutely after people basically survivor's guilt. I was actually sitting in the chow hall, and I was like, I was going through a divorce, just a whole bunch of shit just piled on. Being in Iraq sucks. Like
It does.
just by itself, with no problems whatsoever, you could be depressed just from being in Iraq.
And it's freaking hot, dude. It's like
Ugh.
hot or cold. Can't figure. It's like being 29 Palms, but worse.
But you don't have freedom.
And you don't have freedom.
Yeah.
You can't just
And-
walk around off base or anything.
And I remember sitting in the chow hall and I was thinking about, like, I could just go kill myself. And it'll just be another thing,
Right.
The thing that saved me is I grew up watching wrestling religiously. And I was sitting in the chow hall, and it was actually WrestleMania. And I was sitting there and I heard Ric Flair's music. And I let out
Woo!
I let out a little woo,
Right.
and somebody was like, "Oh, you watch wrestling?" And I was like, "I haven't seen it in years." And like, "Well, WrestleMania's on," and I remember I ended up watching. It was Ric Flair's last match, his retirement match. I remember I sat there and I saw Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels have their match, who I watched growing up as a kid,
Right.
and they were crying. I cried in the chow hall, and I was just like, it was just a sigh of relief.
Right.
That washed over me. I still did stupid shit, but I wasn't like ready to, like, I was ready to die, but I wasn't going to kill myself.
Right.
And then
Yep.
I remember in September of last year, I was going through the VA. I had been taking medication, which made me suicidal. Like, the medication I was taking was just like, it was just messing with my head. I called and I told him, I said, this isn't working. And I said, well, how much medication do you have left? And I said, well, I have like 2 pills left. I said, well, just take the rest of them. And I remember the next day I took 1 pill, and it was like 2:30 in the morning. I was in my shop and I was ready to blow my brains out.
Oh wow.
And I was sitting there and I was like, look, and I keep that pill around. I still have that bottle, and I keep that pill around as a reminder of myself.
It's expired now, by the way.
Yeah, it's in my house, in my room. Of course it's expired. I'm not going to take it anymore, but I keep it around as a reminder. And
Right.
I remember October of last year, I joined the VFW. And I'm sitting here now, the VFW had forced stuff upon me to actually get me involved in the community. And if the way I look at it, like, joining the VFW saved my life.
Right.
Because I'm in the VFW now. I do little things here and there, but I also do the shooting program,
Yep.
which I never would have done if I wouldn't had to join the VFW, because they sent out an email and they were like,
Oh yeah, they put that out.
they put out
yeah.
we need shooting coaches.
Yeah.
And so I volunteered to do a shooting coach. And
Dude, you have no idea how happy I was, because I was the only RSO
Yeah.
of that place. And when he showed up, I was like, dude, can you take it for a couple of
Absolutely,
you can
yeah.
take it? And he did.
Yeah.
He's totally saved my rear end. 'Cause, man, I was so busy and
Yeah.
caught up, and it was just nice having
So
someone I knew who could handle it.
that sense of purpose,
Oh, yeah.
saved my life. And I game as a hobby. I do blacksmithing as a hobby. You want to let out some aggression?
I still want to see some blacksmithing.
You
dude.
take a hammer and hit metal
Oh, yeah.
with it. It works wonders. But as being to the point where you're ready, yeah, I've thought about, like, who's gonna find my body. My wife's gonna find my body. Like, how's my son gonna deal with growing up without having a dad? I didn't care. I was at that bottom rung.
With the bottom rung, man, it's just.
I was to the point where it didn't matter because I felt like I'd be better off if I wasn't around.
And see, and let me ask you this, because when I talk about I hit my bottom rung, because I hit that a couple times too. Do you think anybody could have talked to you and brought you back, literally? Or
I didn't. Well,
or do you think it's your own decision whether you go cross that line or not?
this guy, and it was basically. I was to the point where I reached out to at least a dozen people. No one returned my text message or phone call,
Really?
except for one person. And he was, and him and I had a great relationship when we first met. I was a bouncer, he was the DJ.
Yeah.
Shout out to Spencer. And he taught me how to DJ. And, we had a cool relationship. We drank and partied. We had some good times, but that was
Yeah.
8 years ago.
Okay.
He moved to Australia. We kind of lost contact with each other. I reached out to anybody I could. Nobody returned anything except for I was sitting there. I remember I was sitting there at my workbench. I had my gun on the table and I was like, this is it. I'm fucking, I've made up my mind. This is the time. This is it. These are my last.
You had that line drawn, and
These are my last few moments
Right.
here, and I've made peace with myself
okay.
about it. And I was sitting there, and my phone rang, and I answered the phone, and he was like, "Hey man, hey, sorry, I just got your text, about just like, all happy." And we talked for like a half an hour, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here,
Yeah.
because that was that moment where I did reach out for help.
Right.
Nobody got back to me. Days later, people were like, "Oh, sorry, I missed your text message."
Mm.
And I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, fucking, if it wasn't for somebody answering,
Right. Right.
like,
They probably would.
I'd have
Yeah.
blown my brains out.
Wow.
Because it's one of those things.
At least you reached out, man.
I couldn't talk to my wife about it.
Right. Oh,
I
yeah. That's
I still have a
exciting.
hard time doing it today.
Right.
But I just needed to talk to somebody.
You need someone that you relate to, man.
It's not even relate to.
No?
He never was in the military.
Oh, really?
Nothing.
Oh, wow.
I needed somebody to talk to who I wouldn't
No
feel
judgment?
like they judge me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, and I'm not sure how
And
a
that's
lot of other
huge.
people felt,
Yeah.
but like I can't talk to my wife about certain stuff because I feel like in my eyes that would make her seem less of me,
Right.
just because of shit I did in the military.
Right. Right.
And I did reach out to people, and it sucks. I don't talk to anybody I reached out to. I don't talk to anymore
Right.
because when I needed your help, nobody
Right.
was there for me. Even
Right.
though those people I got you, military guys too.
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
got you. Yeah, we're boys, And then when I actually reach out,
Right.
if anybody calls me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning, whenever,
Right.
I'll answer my phone groggy. I'll be
Right.
like, "What do you want?"
Right.
I might not answer like all nice and everything, but if you call me, I'm still gonna answer. Period.
Right.
Hold on, I've talked to you all different times. You answer the phone nice sometimes?
Yeah, that's you. I mean,
Yeah,
you get a different treatment.
Yeah.
Nice. Special.
Yeah, you get a special treatment.
Yeah. Right.
At least I answer your phone calls, okay? So
That's true. That is true. That's a true statement.
yeah, but
Well,
and
that's
the
good to
thing
hear.
is,
Well, you reached out. I mean, I
I try to. Yeah.
I was the opposite, man. I guess most true introvert you can probably get to. I won't reach out.
I've tried
not-
it both ways before. I
Yeah.
tried it. I tried it when I was a kid. I tried it again, when I was older, and I didn't reach out. And then this time, I was like,
Well, that's good. You just
and
do
I
that.
tried to reach out by going to the VA, and we all have different experiences.
Right.
Some people here are a little more biased about the VA. I'm not gonna say any names or anything, but I've never had a good experience at the VA. I've
Right.
never.
Right.
I've never came away from the VA and had a decent experience. So
So this one's the best I've had.
when I reached out to the VA, I had the same kind of the thing that you were saying, where people were like, "Well, it wasn't positive." I had I saw a therapist that told me, because I wear a lot of American pride stuff and my Marine Corps hat and stuff, and I get a lot of, I have a lot of conversations with people who are like, the conversation will go like, "Oh, did you ever go overseas?" And they're like, "Yeah," and then like 20 minutes later, "Did you ever kill anybody?" Like type of things.
Yep.
And
Wow.
when I told my therapist about it, they were like, "Well, have you tried not wearing patriotic stuff?" I said, "What? Excuse me? What?"
That's the cause you're right.
And I'm like, "Well, why should I change who I am? Like, why shouldn't, like,
Right.
You know, like, I'm not going to change who I am. And then I was like, you know, this isn't working.
Isn't it a good thought process? If you're patriotic, that means it tells you that, like, that's an anchor at least
Well,
at one point.
To maybe play devil's advocate for the therapist side of things, they may think that subconsciously there's a connection there between the trauma or mental issues you're having and the flag or something like that. I'm not saying I agree with them.
I don't.
I'm saying maybe that was their line of thought.
I don't know.
Or they're an idiot. That's the
I
other
don't know. It could be, but regardless of it, you know, like, so I've never had super positive experiences with the VA, but you know, like, that's specific people. You know, like,
Right.
I could have just had a bad batch of people. They could no longer work there, for all I know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you know.
But regardless of that, you just reach out to somebody. Someone somewhere will.
Right.
Well,
Well, you obviously didn't find the right person. I mean, I get it. I mean, sometimes I think that, you know, when I did reach out, it wasn't the VA, but they're still considered part of it when I was on active duty. But
yeah.
you know, I still reached out and I talked to them. I had to have done something because I guess you know I'm still here. So I can't. I think that any. I mean, that's a negative interaction, but
Yeah.
you know, I think at least a person didn't make it like a super negative interaction for me. At least I guess.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't. And it's the big thing you just said, judgment, man. It's just they got to leave all their judgment out of it, and you know, these are trained. You got to train like professional there. You think that they would give you that, but like I said, a lot of it's relatable stuff. If they can't relate to you as a service member, then
Yeah.
you know, and you know what, I'm not gonna dog the VA for it. Sometimes they just hire the wrong people, and that's you probably got that one guy that probably shouldn't be there.
Oh, I've had mental
You know?
health, VA mental health counselors just stop seeing me because I won't take medication. But there's
Right.
scientific evidence to show that what I have going on, you don't need medication, just cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah.
But you got to remember that you're your biggest advocate. So if this person's not working, say something. Talk to their boss. Talk to somebody else.
Right.
Talk to them. Hey, this is not working. Is there somebody else I can see? And if they lie or if they say no, that's a lie. Talk to whoever's above their head. In Montana, I went all the way up to the director for the Montana VA healthcare.
Yeah, I'm an advocate for that. I try to. I mean, unless you have some really bad stuff going on, like I've never been on any medications, and nor do I want to be. I mean, I think that you know all these coping things that I'm doing, and I've had like professionals tell me that's why I'm passing that on to you all. If you're not on any kind of medication, or if you are, whatever, you know, start using these coping mechanisms because you're not always going to be on that drug. You got to come off of it at some point, hopefully.
Well, they were talking about wanting me to be on lithium, and that's some heavy stuff.
Oh yeah, I know some people.
No,
on
you're
it.
not putting no.
I will kind of yes and no. So
Yeah, some people may need it. You never know. You know?
So I did take different prescriptions with the VA, but what I actually found out, I did some research. I watched some podcasts of people talking about it, doctors and stuff, and they did a clinical trial in Canada where they gave veterans who have PTSD, they gave them testosterone, like over the counter,
Right.
buy testosterone,
Which makes sense.
off the pills.
And you know why, right?
Well, and I do, and so I actually started taking testosterone, and my mood went from being depressed, I don't want to do anything, to like,
Right.
I work with the VFW, like
Right.
I do a lot of stuff with the VFW and other organizations, but I never had that drive until I got that, like, it was like a boost, it was like a little jolt, you know, and I just go to I GNC and I buy some testosterone and I take it, and my mood is night and day comparative,
Right.
because it balances the chemicals in your brain.
Right. Well, that's what I was gonna say. So a lot of people with PTSD, like myself, it's pretty crazy, dude. Let me tell you this. So I was obviously a retired Marine, and what happens is, for those of us who've been in Iraq, Afghanistan, and done stuff like that, or just anything traumatic, and you trigger PTSD. Well, what happens with PTSD supposedly, and you can read up on it. If I could be wrong on it, but from what I was told was, you deplete your adrenaline, and that's probably why the testosterone boost is a helper, because it's like you're saying, you're balancing it out, because if you're doing testosterone, you're getting a different kind of chemical, especially for a guy. But when you're depleted on that, and it takes years to rebuild your adrenaline, and we're talking about the adrenaline you get for fight or flight, because when you're in a combat zone, or if you experience something very traumatic to yourself, you deplete those adrenaline. rape victims, for example, car accidents, any of that stuff. You use your adrenaline when that stuff happens because your survival instincts kick in. Well, that's the reason why a lot of us can't get out of that survival instinct is because, we're still building the stuff. It takes years to build back up. So we never come out of that mode in terms of, that survival instinct. And that is that's to this day why I still do things the way I do. That's why I was, I agreed, but I also disagreed because I can't. To this day, if you ever seen it, funniest thing ever. I used to be a corrections officer, okay, and I used to work at prisons out here. Well, it's hilarious to watch, in my mind, okay, not everybody else's, but dude, people are like killing each other out on these tiers. Right? They're fighting, they're beating the crap out of each other to that big gang fight. And I'm just walking out there like, oh, this sucks. All right, let's go ahead and break this up, And everybody else is like, oh my God, run! Because they're having that big adrenaline rush, right? But I don't get those anymore. So I'm just sitting out there like, all right, guys, let's go ahead and take like the calmest person ever. I'm tossing dudes or, doing this kind of thing as calm as can be. Like, and it's funny because there's an extraction video of me. I was on the teams that whenever they had inmates like, I'm not coming out, come in and get me, and they want to fight, they would call me up. And I'd be one of those guys that would go in there, right? And it's funny because I had one guy, and he violent. One of our guys got his wrist broken in this, because we're trying to take this guy out. He went and swinging, had fully, made his own gear up to fight us. And he wouldn't give up his arm. Like I'm trying to, one of the arms, we had a wrist lock on him. He wouldn't give up the other one. So I'm just dropping, I'm doing a technique to get him to soften up, and I got him to, and I'm sitting there as calm as like, put your arm out, it's funny because they're watching this on video. I'm calm as day. Put your arm out, or I'm gonna have to use force. And he's just like sitting there like, no, F you, like doing the whole thing. Boom, and then I did it a couple times. He finally did, but the point I'm going back to again, with all that, because of that, it's weird because we react differently when you don't have that kind of thing. But does that affect you mentally? Yes, it does. It's not a positive thing. It does affect with depression and other stuff when your body doesn't react. I mean, I used to get depressed all the time too because of it. So, maybe I need to try some of that testosterone or just do some squats or something. I don't know, but that sounds like something that's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, we can wrap this up if you guys want. Anything? Yeah, let's wrap this up. You guys cool with that? So hopefully, if you watch this video, regardless of who you are, if you feel like you can relate to anything that we've told you tonight, definitely get in touch. I mean, I know we've had different experiences that we're talking about. The crisis hotline is not just for. There's different crisis hotlines. Okay, so there's one for the VA. There's a regular crisis hotline. Sure. If you're a veteran, Veterans Network, get in touch with them. We have the Idaho one. We're obviously out of Idaho. They've got some pretty good. Some groups out there I've been invited to. I haven't done it yet. Maybe we'll do a video on that if we get a chance.
Absolutely.
With Veterans OP.
And of course, you can always call 911.
Absolutely.
In the United States.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you feel that point, you're at that bottom rung
right there. Yeah.
And he reached out. I didn't, but maybe if I got to that point where I was at the, I was at that point where he's talking about. Maybe I should have called 911. I didn't really think about that. That's actually a good point. I mean, maybe I should have called 911 if I got to that point. Whatever you got to do, if you got to hit up one of us, I mean, whether you're a veteran or not, man, hit us up.
Absolutely.
I have no problem. I'll sit there and talk to you. I can relate to some of your stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Regardless of the trauma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And any of these guys in this room would be glad to sit in a phone call or sit, dude. If you're in my area, let me know. I'll come out to you.
Yeah,
sit down with you.
Yeah, we'll sit down and just talk. Straight up. Not even talk, listen.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you just want, there's no judgment, man.
Absolutely not.
I don't compare myself with any of these other guys. I have my own experience, and I like his experiences and his experience and his different experience. We're all different,
Absolutely.
and we all have our different tool kit that we can actually pull out. I mean, the VA, we have all of our organizations that we belong to and stuff like that. But please hit us up. Even if you want to just go off-roading with me or we'll get stuck out in the middle of nowhere and have Will come pull us. I don't know. We'll figure something out. But yeah, don't get to the point where we're talking about you get to that point where you're on the last rung.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can probably relate to what we've told you tonight.
Yeah.
And if you like what you're seeing, hey, do us a favor, give us a follow on Veterans OP
Yeah.
on
definitely.
YouTube. Hopefully we'll have the channels up for Twitch and VOP Gaming.
Yeah,
And-
definitely.
And hit
It's
us
a
up.
work in progress.
You know, hit us up.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have live stream.
Yeah.
You know, you can hit myself up on my channel or whatever. But we're always here for you, and hopefully this helped you out.
Yeah, definitely. Always feel free to reach out, regardless. And then, I mean, the best piece of advice, you know, is like you have to give yourself a chance. So even if you don't feel like doing anything, take a shower, put some clean clothes on. Just give yourself the chance to make progress, because every day you make progress is the day you were better than you were yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, so
Right. And the last thing is you know, we wouldn't be doing this video if we didn't think you were important. So
absolutely.
you know, you are loved by somebody or liked by somebody, and we'll say we'll give you some love.
Yeah, liked. I don't throw loved out often, so
Good love. I'll talk to you. So.
yeah. I'll talk to you. I like you.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
you know.
So, all right. Well, hey, thanks, and you know, I'm Rob, and
Yeah, I'm Danny.
Well,
Matt.
Yeah, thank you guys for always being on on our podcast. So we really appreciate it. So,
All right.
all right. Well, we'll see you guys in the next one.